Hi folks and welcome back to the Scotch Tracker. Today our guest is college tutor George Howie, who's running a course I'm currently taking at Glasgow Clyde College called Star Trek The Evolution. Although it's based in Glasgow, it's available for people worldwide to sign up for. It's the first of its kind for Scotland, I believe. I'm pretty sure Star Trek hasn't been taught in or from this country, i.e. Scotland, academically like this before, the country that I'm in. Welcome George Howie, and thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's very nice to be here. Always nice to get kind of involved in. On you go. Sorry.
Thanks also to your co-hosts for joining us, including Aaron and Chris, who are joining us new today.
Welcome.
Yep.
Oh, thank you so much. Nice to be here.
George, I wondered if we could start with an initial question. What your earliest memories of Star Trek are?
I think for me it was I should have actually thought about stuff before I even came on this morning. So I'm 34. So I've grown up with a lot of Star Trek on, usually kind of TV. Sky One years ago, where constantly they would just play like episodes of Next Gen. When I was growing up, though, I remember distinctly watching what would have been the original Star Trek series, so the TOS, or the Star Trek with William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy. I'd grown up kind of watching those ones, but I don't manage to catch like certain episodes, so I never got to watch it like continuously, really, to follow a lot of the stories. But from what I had seen of it, really, really enjoyed it. And then I think later years, I'd started really getting into Next Gen. Who doesn't love Picard? I mean, Picard's just awesome. And then going from Next Gen, it really just went out from there, kind of thing. As soon as I was able to watch DS9 on usual, just normal television, I was watching that every week when it was broadcasted. And then as soon as Voyager came on, it's just spanned from there. But definitely quite early on, I remember watching the original Star Trek. And then kind of getting some exposure to some of the Star Trek comics as well, even around that time, as well as just other types of ones. At that time, when DC and Marvel were releasing other comics, Star Trek was amongst some of the ones I'd bought years ago. So I've had kind of some exposure to most of it from the beginning. Although the first Star Trek came out in 1965, so it's been around a long time. My kind of exposure to it obviously started in the late 80s, early 90s. So yeah, Star Trek's always been a big thing there, a big influence, definitely.
And how did you get involved in teaching Star Trek?
So in the Glasgow Clyde College, I actually work full-time in the ICT department, but I also lecture part-time. So I lecture part-time actually teaching in the computing faculty, but I also work for it's the commercial team over in the college, and it's them that make up all these really, really fun type of courses. So this Star Trek course is part of our Love to Learn program, it's called, and generally it's like a collection of courses that are not necessarily about courses that will lead straight to jobs, but it's about maybe there's so many reasons people can go to college, whether it's sometimes just to learn a new skill, a new hobby. We've got kind of courses on, say, like floristry. There's ones on like crystal healing. There's ones on woodwork. There's ones on if you want to make your own guitar. There's all sorts of types of kind of courses that the Love to Learn program kind of has. And my kind of contribution to it was, again, just purely because I'm a big Trekkie. I thought, well, we've never had a Star Trek course before. Why don't we try that? And I kind of pitched the idea a couple of times, and I think initially we kind of, it was kind of, we'll maybe do it, maybe not do it. And then it was actually just at the beginning of COVID, when we're trying to aim a lot of our courses online, I kind of thought this is the best chance to try and do something like this, where if it's an online course, loads of people could even come onto it, and we could also get a little bit of buzz around it. So I started off actually in the Love to Learn program, pitching a few other courses that I've also got passions for, like we've got a Batman course. And that kind of stemmed down. So after the Batman course, I then did a villains course, which was all about just the bad guys, all about Catwoman, Poison Ivy, Joker. And then that's kind of stemmed on again to other courses that I'm doing, including an entire course on the Justice League. But amongst those ones, I was still trying to build up the profile for a Star Trek course. And again, during COVID, we finally got to kind of start that, which was amazing.
Can I ask a quick question? Is for the Justice League course, is the Justice Society course a prerequisite to take the Justice League course?
No. My one like covers, so it's the history of the Justice League. So it covers everything. It covers the the GISA. It covers the JLI. So I mean, it covers the Justice Society, which of course was the organisation before Justice League. But we also cover everything in it in the entire history. All the Justice League groups, like Justice League International. It kind of goes on from there.
That's fascinating. Thank you.
But the Star Trek one again, because it is, it's a strong passion of mine. I'm like a big sci-fi fan, like probably like a lot of kind of Star Trek fans are. Totally into sci-fi. Every type of Star Trek, every type of even Star Wars as well. But Star Trek for me always is the one that wins. Of course. So this was one of the courses again that I kind of felt quite strongly about, and I thought it'd be a really good course to do. I think it's one of those kind of things where I feel that, especially even for the colleges as well, the kind of sci-fi and the kind of community that's behind that is so untapped, and it's such there are communities that exist everywhere. And it's like a kind of shared passion you can have. Like there's people out there that can have a shared passion for, say, something like football, and they can talk about football for hours. I hate football, but I could talk about sci-fi and Star Trek for hours. And it's one of those kind of things I feel that's something that it gets people talking, it gets people networking, and it's just generally, it's a good thing that builds communities. And I think Star Trek is something like that there is a community there that I think needs to be celebrated and kind of promoted a bit more there, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, Chris and Aaron, I know you're new to the show, but if you have any questions, absolutely feel free to ask. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, sure. So, George, do you when you're teaching this course, do you get into the ethical issues that the show touches on, or what is your course content?
So, well, the way I'd kind of made the kind of syllabus for the course was they're evening courses, and they're only 2 hours per session. So we've just, because this is the first ever one that we've ran before. So initially, what we did was we've just made an 8-week course. And every week on a Monday it'll be just 2 hours. So it's a lot to cram in the 2 hours. But what I wanted to do for it was so that the idea of the course is whether it's a course that you can join whether you're a person who knows a lot about Star Trek, but also maybe if you just know nothing about Star Trek and want to learn about it. Maybe there's so many people out there that I think maybe might have an interest in Star Trek, but maybe don't quite know where to start or what show to start watching or how to get into it. So this kind of course I kind of felt I wanted to make that kind of covers all those areas where it's people that know a lot about Star Trek, and again we can talk about Star Trek in a safe environment, but also we can get just into this. So what my plan was for it was just every week we essentially cover a different series or franchise of Star Trek. So in the beginning, when we started with TOS, the original series, we briefly went into the animated series. We've covered some of the comics. Then we've kind of branched on from that bit to Next Gen. We've done DS9. This week we just did Voyager. So the next couple of ones would just pretty much in order of way that they were kind of released. The next ones would be, we'll actually maybe cover like Enterprise, and then we'll actually maybe also cover just a bit of Discovery and a bit of the new Picard as well, and then any of the other stuff in the final week. It's a lot to cram in. Just you've only got 2 hours. But we've had a couple of discussions, I think, just in a few, like the kind of usual things you would start with other people with Star Trek. You would ask them, how did you get into Star Trek? What's your favourite type of ship? Maybe either so. And what we've also been doing as well, we started the courses off by, of course, we're doing a bit of Klingon as well, kind of thing. So I've been trying to find a couple of Kiwi phrases and just words, just to make it a bit of fun to kind of get the kind of night started. And generally, from even the past couple of weeks, I think everyone's kind of liked it. It's kind of just a wee bit of fun, and that's kind of the way I've wanted it to be. So, yeah.
Is it fair to say that most of the enrollees are probably Trek fans as opposed to new initiates, that sort of thing?
Oh yeah, well the ones on this course, because again the way we'd kind of timed it was it was we're going to time it better next time the way the PR the course, but it's one of those things where the course actually started. And then we got the kind of PR about it online on the website and even in some of the newspapers locally here. So I think if the timing had been promoted well, there'd been more people on the course. But the ones that are on the course anyway now, quite a couple of them do know about, they know their stuff on Star Trek. There's one or two that maybe haven't seen everything, or maybe some of it they've not seen at all. So for this, every single time we went over something they've not seen, we're like, right, well, that's your homework then. Go watch that. Go and look that up. And it's totally fun. That's the idea. They kind of love to learn courses. The ones that I host anyway, I don't like the idea of there being any stress behind it. The idea is we just come on, we have a bit of fun, We record all the sessions, so if someone misses a class, they can always watch the class later on, or just if they want to go over something that we talked about. Any of the handouts that I make, I do in just a standard PowerPoint template that's got an LCARS theme to it. So I'll then just export them to PDFs, and then everyone on the course gets all the handouts I've made, because it's just a bit of fun. That the idea is just, again, anyone, whether you're a hardcore Star Trek fan or just anyone new to it, I'd like to think there's a bit for everybody there. So.
And then I'm going to miss this in a second, but how many weeks is? I'm sorry, last question. How many weeks is the semester?
Just 8 weeks for now. Like it's the first one we've ever ran, but that's not to say we could change that to more weeks or make it an extensive study, or make it where maybe this is just maybe the level 1 class, and maybe we can make a level 2. Like the idea is that it's open, so we could work on it. I think if we get more people on the courses as well, it could hopefully branch out to something bigger.
Mm-hmm. I think the range of knowledge about Star Trek is like one of the pluses about the course. I think it's great that some people are taking it that maybe have only watched the original series. So, which is fine, because because that's it. I mean, it's been around since 1965. So I mean, when you think of everyone, even from now to from that point, or 66, but I thought it was 65 it started. But like, so you think to yourself, even like everyone's had so much different exposure. Some people started off watching Star Trek, maybe just from Voyager onwards. Some people that they've started with William Shatner's kind of Star Trek. Other people, it's totally varied. So it's nice to hear that though. The kind of exposure that some people, especially maybe even some, because there's quite a few colleagues I've spoke about to it in the college as well, and some of them who of course are like older than I am, that maybe are in say their 50s or 60s. Some people actually have grown up with Star Trek since the beginning, who have seen all of it from the get-go. But I think it's really nice to hear, because I think even one of the students on the Star Trek course, I think she's only just seen some of the movies, and that's kind of all she's seen. And so again, she kind of came on this course again just to learn more about it, because she's got an interest in them. And again, that's kind of the idea there. But it's nice to hear everyone. I love to hear about different people's kind of exposures to certain things, whether it's sci-fi or animations and stuff like that, because everyone's started in their own way with it. Some people start with the comics and go into the movies. Sometimes it's the reverse, but it's the kind of thing that builds a community, and it's a thing that is totally networking. It's just how you can talk about things like this with a total stranger, because you've both got a shared passion about it, and that's just awesome. That's just awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. Aaron, do you have a question?
Not so much of a question per se. I actually know someone in the United States that is a professor that also teaches courses on all sorts of fandom in Nevada. And knowing him and knowing a lot about what he does, he also does panels at conventions. Is that something you'd consider doing?
I would do it, but to be honest, I don't think anyone would probably ask me yet. But if I was asked, I would go again, because it's like see over here in Glasgow, we have the things like Comic-Con and Collector Mania and stuff like that here. So anytime there's been events like that, I've always went to them, because again, even things like that, it's such a brightening, and the energy that you get from these kind of events where people are dressing up in cosplay. You've got people that are dressed up in Star Trek uniforms, walking around with their tricorders and stuff and their phasers. You've got people that are dressed up in,
I'm gonna ask you to go to your first one at the end of the show.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm on it. That's fine. No, I'll be there. So no, I mean, it's going to events like that. They are just amazing, because you've got people that have dressed up in all amazing costumes, and there's always quite a few Star Trek ones that are just really, really good. And things like that, the energy that you get from these, it's just amazing. So I've been to them just as just a ticket buyer like everybody else, to go around the stalls and look at some of the QAs. One of the Collector Manias, that I went to, this was a couple of years back, Alice Kriege was there, the Borg Queen. And she was just amazing. Now, of course, the size of me, I'm about 5'9". I ran up to this woman, and I think she was really, really low. And I was like, oh my god! I was just totally geeking out. Oh my god, it's the Borg Queen! Oh my god, it's Alice Kriege! And she's such a lovely woman. But see, to meet her, she's about this height. She's actually quite a short wee lady. But yet, see on the camera, she's got such a powerful, presence. But she was amazing to talk to. And she did. He did a Q&A.
She's that short.
What's that?
I'm surprised she's that short.
Yeah, no, she's not that tall. Because I've got a few pictures taken with her. But she was absolutely amazing. She was just so lovely. She was doing a Q&A there as well, and at one point she was doing a Q&A and someone asked her a question, and she kind of laughed out as well. And she's actually got a bit of a, what I would say, cool, evil laugh. She's just brilliant. She's just amazing. She's just so lovely. But so to get to meet her in the flesh, it was just amazing. It was in the same collective media, that one that I went to. I think I got to meet Lance Henriksen as well. He was amazing. He is just so chill. Lance Henriksen, of course, has been in nearly everything sci-fi, at least at some point or another. And to meet him, he was just such a cool guy. He was wearing Crocs, and I was with my pal at that time, and I said, "Oh my God, he's wearing Crocs!" But he caught me actually pointing at him, saying he's got Crocs, and he kind of did this, and he kind of lifted his foot up, and he was like, "Yeah, Crocs!" But he's such a cool, mellow guy, and I actually got him to sign my Chris Carter Millennium box set. And it was just an amazing guy. But right after meeting him, I got to see Alice Creed, and just getting to see her for 5 minutes. That's like one of my kind of things. I'm happy anytime I see the Borg Queen in like First Contact or Star Trek. I'm like, oh my God, I met her. I met the Borg Queen. It's one of my things I always kind of bring up now, kind of thing, just because it's just amazing.
Can you do an impression of her laugh?
I can't. No, it was like I'm trying to think how we could. It's almost like it was like. Like it, but like it was just one of those kind of laughs that like definitely like a female villain has, and like and what would be probably a Star Trek episode. It was just amazing. It was really cool. So getting to meet the Borg Queen, that's one of my top things that will never get overshadowed, definitely. But so again, it's stuff like that, like things like kleptomania and conventions. I think those themselves are just brilliant things, and hopefully with the whole COVID thing out the way, hopefully we can get back to all that kind of stuff again. You know, it'll be a nice thing to see, I think.
So is there something you find particularly difficult or challenging about teaching Star Trek?
No, not at all. Again, because it's like the people that have applied for it, they're usually people that are interested in the subject. I mean, like you say general lecturing. I mean, sometimes you could be teaching a course that sometimes the people on that course don't really want to be there. But with the leisure courses, it's totally different. But the ones that I've done in Batman and Villains and Justice League or Star Trek, they're people that have wanted to be there. And you can, even from talking to everybody, again, everyone's had a different experience of Star Trek, and also maybe a different reason why they wanted to do the course. But generally the leisure ones I've found, everyone tends to want to be there, and everyone's generally really quite positive. Like on one of the Batman courses I've got, I mean, there's certain students that, like, as soon as I'm even going through the stuff, they're that keen to butt in and go, oh, but also that, and I'm like, the thing you're just about to say, I've got in the next slide, but you need to give me the chance to get there. And it's just because they're so excited, and they've got a strong passion about it. And in Star Trek, again, it's something that I'd see as just something similar. I think everyone that probably would go on these courses is probably someone who wants to be there and learn more about it or contribute. Because again, whilst I'm hosting the course, I'm flat out saying I am by no means like an absolute Star Trek expert. I've got what would say is I've got a well-rounded knowledge of Star Trek, definitely. I've watched every single series. I've watched anything that's been Star Trek. I have watched it. But I wouldn't say that I'm certainly a world expert. So I know for factually, even like Dan here right now, I know there's a lot of stuff. And this is the contributing part about it, is that because Star Trek's so extensive, there probably is a strong chance you will meet another Star Trek fan who probably knows something that day that you didn't know about Star Trek, but you can learn from them. And that's a good thing about that as well, that Star Trek, I think, because it's had so much exposure, whether it's be the comics or the shows or even just other types of forms of media that it's came in, as well as through parodies, that there's guaranteed something that you probably didn't know today about Star Trek that someone else probably could tell you about. And that's amazing as well, though, that everyone's learning from other people. You know, it's a lifelong learning kind of attitude.
Johnny, do you have a question?
Sorry, yes, I had to unmute. I was just wondering how you handle, or if your coursework handles topics of continuity. Because I know one of the things, and canonicity, because I know that those are two hot button topics among fans of the franchise, and I think it'd be interesting to see if an academic course would actually try to engage those or avoid those because of.
I think it's definitely something that could easily happen. To be honest, because we've only got 2 hours in our sessions each week, and I'm more going on just the mechanical types of kind of scenarios, or the types of kind of the information I'm looking at is more it's the widely again the canon kind of side of it. But I think if we'd had more time, that's something that I think could really spark good debates. And it's something whether or not, well, do you feel that should be canonical? Do you feel that's considered to be this, or do you think that should stem on from that kind of? And especially even when you get the novels as well and the comics that have a lot of times continued stories from certain episodes of, say, in Voyager that we covered this week. A lot of ones like that. But again, some fans would again still argue that, but that's not quite canonical. No, I don't think that's, so, which is it. But I feel that the kind of debate side that you get in Star Trek is always kind of quite juicy, isn't it? Like, it's always kind of a good thing where you can get people talking about things and the reasons as to why they think that shouldn't exist in that continuity, or that certain episode where they went back in time but maybe changed events in there. What's kind of stemmed from there, and these kind of things they can start debates, they can start arguments, they can start constantly ongoing things that get people talking. The course, again, just the one we've got now, which is the 8 weeks, and it's only 2 hours a session, and that is purely canonical information. I think I'm really going, only because we've only got enough time to. If I'm just going over, say, what that Star Trek's about, the certain ships that are involved, what kind of main characters, what captain, whether it's Janeway, whether we've got Cisco, whether we've got Picard, talking about even just the main characters, and generally the information about it as to how maybe that show came about. After that, really, we've not really got much time after it to go a lot. I mean, it's one of those kind of things. Star Trek is the Star Trek universe is so expansive that there's so much we could talk about it. But squeezing that much in the 2 hour session is quite difficult. But so
it sounds like so much fun.
I know. I think it's just a nice thing to do. It's just something that's just. I just thought it would just be an awesome thing to have. I mean, because again, I feel up to now it's a bit of an untapped thing, and I think it's something that I think people just find a lot of fun. So my plans for all the leisure courses that we usually do for Love to Learn, and again, it's the 8 weeks, and then usually on that, I'll give the students all the content I've made up. They've got the access to all the recordings for months, even after the course, and they'll get an official college certificate as well, saying, certificate of completion that they've actually completed the Star Trek course as well. So they get a nice wee digital certificate at the end of it as well, and it's quite cool. My plan, I'd kind of said to, I think, Dan and the others that are on this course, I'd said to them what we'll do is, even at the end of it, you can tell me your favourite Star Trek or your favourite comm badge logo or your favourite this, and I'll make that like a wee embossed kind of thing in your certificate kind of thing and make it personalised. So again, but it's something for me. It's definitely, I think it's about promoting the kind of the sci-fi and promoting Star Trek. Because again, I just feel we don't get enough of it out there. So let's get more Star Trek out there. Definitely, I think.
Like branching out to, again, speaking about other courses. Aaron, you have a question?
Oh.
Yeah, I wanted to know if you would consider doing a women in science fiction course.
I just seen your chat there, sorry, Aaron. No, that's something, again, I'd love to branch out. I mean, like, what I'd actually done recently on the Batman and Justice League and villains courses, what I did was actually just a couple of weeks ago was I'd actually went into an entire section, and when we're talking about the comics in DC, I'd actually covered an entire section on all the LGBT characters that have been appearing more mainstream in comics. So again, up to that point now, with years ago with the Comics Code Authority, like things like that just weren't allowed to be even shown, even less through innuendo. So I touched on LGBT characters, and I think this week I'd even touched on a few even characters that it's showing visible disability. That'd be something definitely to be worth kind of pursuing as well, though, whether it's just doing a women in science fiction course. I think it's one of those kind of things that I feel it's a good topic, and it probably would get some interest. That's something, again, that we could, if anything, we could probably actually tie that in with a Star Trek course. Again, when you think of the sheer technology we have now that Star Trek has actually influenced, you think about when, in the 1960s when they had this tricorder device. We've got that now, and it's called a mobile phone. It's got a camera, it's got a communicator. And have any of you actually watched any of those kind of documentaries before, all about how Star Trek's influenced technology? I think there was a really good one that William Shatner actually hosted. And he was just going into just basically all the technology now that we have that essentially has almost been, Star Trek has almost kind of influenced inventors and developers to actually create stuff like that. So I mean, it's something like that kind of idea where women in science fiction, I mean, that in itself could be something we could stem or actually build into the Star Trek course, or maybe a separate one on its own. Again, it's something to be celebrated. Again, it's especially like women in science fiction, or just women in science. It's stuff like that needs to be promoted more, and it's something that I think if we did do something like that, it probably would actually get quite an audience to it. I think it's quite a good idea. Yeah.
Cool. Chris, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what was the do you or do you remember any really passionate debates that kind of stick out to you that you've had in the course or that students have had with each other?
Oh, well, so far it's just it's been polite. There's been nothing. There's been no angry debates yet. I don't know. I think, for me, for instance, me personally, because I'll bring this up. For instance, if we've been talking about captains and kind of commanders and stuff, I absolutely can't stand Cisco, and it's purely because he's just too over the top. Sure, one of the clips I played in one of the PowerPoints that I had it's an entire compilation of videos that someone's put on YouTube of just him going off at people over something that really isn't that much. But it's oh no, we do. Don't get me wrong, because again, I do like Cisco, but I like him because he's this kind of character. But I can't take him seriously. So for me, I've not been as usually. If anything, I used to find with DS9 when Cisco was on the screen and his son, they two would sometimes be the most boring stories compared to everybody else's. I want to see more of Garrett. I want to see more of Odo. I want to see more of this kind of stuff happening. But anytime you get an episode all about his son or Cisco, you'd be like, oh great, it's one of those kind of episodes.
The more you watch Deep Space Nine, I mean, for me personally, the more I dislike Cisco.
I would agree with that. That I think, see, when you even start it in season 1, it's slow. But there's so much good stuff that happens in DS9. And even in the course, I refer to DS9 as neighbours in space. I kind of feel it's almost that kind of soap where it's set in some kind of bar where events just there's always somebody bad that happens to walk onto the promenade and start some ruckus. But it's when you persevere with it, there's so much good stuff that happens in DS9. And DS9, of course, is one of the few that actually it directly crosses over canonically with Next Gen and Voyager. Again, DS9, because it was doing so well, inspired and let them run Voyager. So I mean, a lot of good stuff came out of DS9. But I would say out of all of them, Cisco just really annoys the hell out of me.
So a follow-up question to that would be: if comparing Cisco to Lorca, which would you prefer?
Okay. I would actually say Lorca. I would say Lorca because you get some good kind of stories out of Lorca. I would say Lorca. Actually, I think Cisco really takes the biscuit for me. Cisco, I've watched Cisco a lot over the years, and but so when you go on YouTube and watch these kind of compilation clips, I mean, they are funny. They are so funny to watch. But when you are watching the episodes, you're like, right, Cisco, come on, move it on. So I think out of all the commanders, I'd probably say he's probably maybe my least favorite. That was me being honest, and of course, I'm saying he's my least favorite. But the same vein, he's funny, but not in the way he's probably meant to be. I don't know. But
he's my least favorite too. So you're not
all right.
wrong.
Well, I feel bad. That's okay then. That's all right.
Yeah. So I like Cisco. I think he's good for the most part. When I don't like him is with Eddington. I think everything else is great. I like it when he yells, but when he deals with Eddington, it's just too much. And then I do want to say, I can see what you mean about the Jake and Cisco, but I would say I like it because I don't like Worf and Alexander. It redeems, Worf being a bad father really just grates me. So I'm glad that, okay, we have a cool Star Trek character who is a good father.
He's a good dad.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
No, I'll go with that. I felt that kind of thing, the whole Worf and Alexander kind of thing, I felt that just went on a bit too long as well. I liked it. I mean, in Next Gen at the time as well, even we've seen more stuff with Worf and stuff, and how his character's developed amazingly over time. See, when you watch Worf in the later seasons of DS9 compared to the first times you see him in Next Gen, I mean, his character has evolved so much over the years. I love Worf absolutely, but I felt the Worf and Alexander thing, I felt I was over it very quickly. So I suppose that's one good thing about Cisco. I think even that's promoting itself. I suppose in this real scenario we see in Starfleet, you do have the kind of this guy he's having to run DS9 and just everything's happening every day. Something else, there's some kind of new drama every day, but he's also trying to be a good father at the same time, kind of thing. So in a way, that was kind of nice to see done right. But no, I think so far. On you go. Sorry.
I was going to say, if you could appear in any Star Trek series yourself, which one would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say, now it's tough because I really want to say Voyager because I love Janeway. But if I was to appear there, we'd be stuck very, very far from home. It's either Janeway or but then do I want to say Discovery or Picard because they've got a lot of really cool stuff. Like I don't know, they've got a lot of really cool tech in those ones. Okay, I don't know. Right, I'm either torn between Voyager because I would love to meet Janeway. I think Janeway would be so much fun. I think Janeway would be good to work with. Or it would maybe be, I'd say Picard because then whilst I've met Picard, we'd hopefully bump into 7 of 9 as well, and then we could all become best pals. So that'd be my plan there. That'd be my plan. Yeah. We'd all do lunch somewhere. Yeah, that's.
Have you got a favourite Star Trek film?
Favourite Star Trek film? First Contact. Definitely. There's just it's some of the episodes even with Picard because like Picard obviously throughout the film is getting more and more peeved off with the Borg. And then it's the bit when she's talking about you have to give up the ship, you've got to abandon it, you've got to go now, and he's like no. Then he breaks his wee ships, and then she's like, you broke your little ships. Like just when he goes off at Lily, and then when he's talking to Lily about the Federation, I think we'd actually discussed this in the course. He talks about, how the Federation, in the future, we don't really have money, blah, blah, we work to better ourselves. But really what Picard should have said is, no, there was still money. It's just if you happen to be in the Federation, you don't really bother about money as much. But like I'd say First Contact's probably my favourite, purely again because it has the Borg Queen in it. The big Borg battle at the beginning of the movie. And I think just generally the whole kind of thing was quite funny. We see Diana Troy drunk when she's met Zephyr Cochrane. I think I really did I've watched that movie probably the most times out of all the Star Trek movies. I think I do love the reboots. I do love the kind of the Kelvin kind of movies. I think Chris Pine does a really, really good Kirk. All the new characters I think actually really are I think they're a testament actually to the original characters. I think every one of them was just bang on, really, really good. So I've watched all of them. But I think out of all of them, First Contact's probably my favourite. If Voyager had a movie, I'd probably be sitting here saying Voyager right now, but I'll say Picard. I'll definitely say for First Contact. I liked Insurrection right afterwards. I did like Insurrection at the time, but First Contact takes it from me.
Can I ask you a Borg Queen question? Since we're talking about the Borg Queen. So how do you feel about Susanna Thompson's portrayal of the character in Voyager?
Actually, I really did like her because she did the majority of the Borg Queen anytime you've seen her in Voyager. They got Alice Creed on a plane pretty much for the last episode of Voyager. But I actually did like her portrayal as well, and she actually does look really close to the way Alice Creed, obviously with all the kind of prosthetics and stuff, you could probably make anyone look like the Borg Queen, really. But I did like her portrayal of the Borg Queen as well. The kind of episodes that we got with her, I actually again really did like. I think again because the Borg, there's something about the Borg that just make a really, really good baddie. Like the Borg are evil. They're kind of scary. They're kind of creepy. We don't really understand them. And even the whole concept around even the Borg Queen herself, obviously over the years there's been talk of the whole Borg King kind of thing, but also it's the whole thing about, well, how can the Borg Queen be an individual when you refer to herself as I, but really, she's still, she manages all the chaos, but she's still an individual, but she's also still the Borg Queen, and just even getting your head around that all the time, you're like, what? There's something about the Borg that just make a really good baddie, and we don't quite understand them. So I think anytime we've seen Borg episodes, they're usually probably my favourite. I think they're just the most interesting kind of bad guys, just because they're so bad, and we still don't know really how to defeat them because they always adapt. So I'd say that they definitely, I think that kind of portrayal of the Borg, and again, I did love as well any episodes with the Borg and Voyager, like favourite episodes for me, I think. Yeah.
Chris, do you have a question?
I'm trying to think of something. I can't. Okay, right. What is your least favorite Star Trek movie? Just out of curiosity, the one where you're just like, okay, why do I have to watch this right now?
Least favorite.
It's not Insurrection.
Well, Insurrection. I thought the thing is, Insurrection. I liked some of the kind of things that happened in it. Like I did, some of the kind of wee bits. I don't like that. I can't remember what the admiral's name was again. The bad admiral that kind of is kind of.
Doughty. Doughty.
Yeah. Like I like the kind of thing with him, and I liked it. I did like bits of the movie, so I can't quite say it just wasn't as good as First Contact for me. I think that's probably the real thing.
I mean, it's hard to hold a candle to First Contact, to follow up. That's a hard act to follow, for sure.
I think that's probably the problem. I think that's maybe what I'm doing. I think I'm maybe just nothing quite compares. I would maybe say, I think The Search for Spock, maybe. I don't know. Like, I probably did like the movie. I'd probably start Search for Spock actually wasn't as bad. I'd probably maybe have said, I don't know, maybe Voyage. It's been maybe Voyage Home. Like, because I remember watching them all, and I'd watched them all recently in order, not that long ago, and I think that's maybe one that maybe didn't grab me as much either. Undiscovered Country I quite liked. So again, it's kind of it's more of it's also a handover as well to the kind of new lot. I don't know. It's probably it would either be between 4 and 5, so it'd either be Voyage Home or Final Frontier. But then I think I did like Final Frontier. I would say I don't think let's say the William Shatner movies, like I love the original motion picture and I loved Rafa Khan. But I think the couple of ones after that, I don't think that they would. What I would maybe say is they maybe don't hold my interest 100% of the time as if I was watching First Contact or one of the newer movies. That's maybe just, I don't know if that's maybe just at the time where, because years ago I hadn't seen the movies. I've only recently seen the movies and maybe say my late teens, early 20s when I'd actually finally sat down to watch them all in order. So probably maybe 4 and 5 maybe. So I'd say again like Voyage Home and maybe Final Frontier maybe-ish. But again, I think I can't really say they were bad movies. I would just say I don't like them as much. That's my nice easy way of maybe saying that. I think I won't actually say that. I don't think there's been a really rubbish Star Trek movie, because I think they all have their own bits to them that I think contribute to the Star Trek kind of ethos, I think.
I have to say, I love motion picture. I'm just looking at Aaron's comment. Even though I would not say it's a good movie, I'm not defending it as a good movie, but I grew up with it, so it's like...
It's awful. What do you mean?
I just love it. Even though it's like, I was looking at it, it's like 45 minutes into the movie where the movie actually starts, if you look at the time code. But I don't know. I just grew up with it, so I enjoy it, even though it's a movie. I would say if you really have to watch it, you should do chores, like iron, do laundry, cleaning the kitchen, something while you're doing it.
I could go the rest of my life without ever hearing someone say V'ger again. That movie is awful, awful, awful.
Yeah. So I used to feel the same way until, I think it was until the anniversary screening in theaters, that Fathom event just like a year or two ago. And I went and I brought my kids to see it because, obviously I'd never seen it on the big screen. And I tried to put myself in the position of what it must have been like coming off of like the little TVs in 1969, and then 10 years later seeing the Enterprise like larger than life, as the refit on the big screen. And that's what finally turned me around on the motion picture. I mean, it's a film that does not translate well to TV at all. But when you do, if you can get a chance at some point to see it on the big screen, it is an entirely different experience.
Yeah,
I will never watch it. I'm with you though, Aaron. I will never watch it on my TV at home again.
Too far stretched.
It's so bad. I'd be hesitant to go to an actual theater to watch it. I can't stand it.
Oh, if it was in a theater, you would get the experience of seeing it in a cinema. But you got to think about that. The motion picture was in 1979. So, you've got to think about stuff like that. That again, see at that time, everyone who was watching that at home, their screens were about 12 inches big. And you've got to think of it that way. That in 1979, our TVs were no bigger than a tablet. So, to have watched it, to have had that experience different from the rest of us who are watching TV on our big 32, 42, 52, 62 TVs stretched. It's the same way when you're watching even some of the older series on television now. Sometimes it just doesn't really stretch that well. They do it in that thing where they still show it in a square kind of ratio, just so it doesn't quite pixelate. But no, I think for me that's the appreciation thing. I think, like, see a lot of movies that you've seen in the 80s and you've loved them. If you were to set someone now down who is maybe only 18 years old and was born after the year 2000, they would probably not like that movie as much as you like it, because you've seen it at the time when that was the way, that at that particular time, that's how good film effects were, that's how good the makeup was, that's even how good the potential CGI was. But someone to watch those things now, they're like, what? That was rubbish. But again, I think you would like it more because you've seen it at that time. For you, it's the nostalgia. To you, you do think you look past the crap makeup and you look past that and go, but that acting was really good compared to now where we're relying entirely on CGI. So it's those kind of things that make you think, I think, just a wee bit about it. So with the motion picture, although yes, it's it doesn't bode well now. 1979. I mean, you got to think about it at that time as well. And again, everyone who was watching it at home, they were watching it on a screen that was barely bigger than a bit of A4 paper. So I would think about that a little bit.
But were people disappointed? Because I can imagine, like, coming out of motion picture and not knowing, like, if you didn't know that Wrath of Khan was coming out, would you be like, okay, that's it, we're done?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, I think it did. I mean, it kept it going. I mean, although Wrath of Khan was a couple of years later, I think people were still buzzing enough from the series and the movie that I think it did still keep it going, didn't it? Anyway. But again, for some people, it might have just been, oh, what's this Star Trek thing that's in the cinemas? Oh, we'll just go and watch that. And maybe they've came out of it and went, it was all right. And then other people that might have been, again, more kind of Star Trek fans might have been like, wow, that was so good. Wow. Again, more of the kind of feeling just because we had something else Star Trek-y to watch. It's maybe just one of those things.
I thought the same with even the animated series, which is obviously, well, certainly in my opinion, not to the same standard as like the original series.
I still haven't finished it yet.
Oh, I love the anime. You know what I love? You know what is more the bigger thing is that there are so many funny memes online that use the GIFs. Just the stupid, like the wee kind of scenes where someone storms out of a room or something and there's some weird stupid caption on them. But there's so many memes built around GIFs that are from the original series, the animated series. They're so fun. That's actually, if anything, that's actually what actually encouraged me to go back and watch the animated series, was because I've just seen so many GIFs online that'll use kind of, even like say, one of their kind of face where they just kind of spin around and look at the camera, and it kind of actually then there's some kind of funny GIF that actually made me then go back and watch the animated series. And see, every single time when you're then watching the episodes, you'll see certain clips or scenes and go, that's been used in a GIF, and it's just stuff like that I'll end up going, oh, that's quite clever. But it's definitely worth it if you're a Star Trek fan. The animated series actually is quite, see, again, because they got pretty much all the original cast to do the voicing for it. There's probably a few things I think they mentioned before that they couldn't really do in the live action that they could do in the cartoon. So that in itself helps expand that kind of term, because again it's still seen as canonical. The same way even the argument now about Star Trek Lower Decks, that it's set in the Star Trek universe. So we've got some people that will maybe say that it is canonical, and other people say, well, no, it doesn't really tie in, blah blah. Then you've got like kind of flashback. You've got stuff in it like the Q and stuff like that. And I think the next couple of seasons is supposed to have more people kind of joining it. I think they collectively still kind of add to the Star Trek universe. I'd always say anything with a Star Trek name on it, we should definitely watch it, even just to say we've seen it, and then we can decide if we like it or not, or if we should totally slate it, or if we should just promote it. I think we should see it first, then decide. I think. We've all got access to the internet. We've all got YouTube and stuff. So I mean, it's always worth having a wee look. That if you've never seen that kind of thing before, have a quick browse on YouTube for 5 minutes and just see if maybe something you like. Even just look at the trailer for it and take a look. It's always worth it. Always pays off.
Oh, I thought it was good as well. They had like the much the same writers in the animated series as they had in the original series. So I suppose if you can go without Chekhov being in it and substitute Arex and Damrus, you're all good.
But that in itself gave us scope for more characters and people to be involved in that anyway, though. So no, I think it adds to the whole Star Trek universe. So for me, that's a plus anyway. Because again, there's probably some people out there that maybe haven't liked live action as much as the animated series, and it's maybe the same with other types of kind of mediums that people have been exposed to, where some people maybe only might just like the Star Trek comics, but not like actually the shows that much. So again, everyone might like a different bit of Star Trek. So I think it's still nice that we have those different mediums of Star Trek that could be out there for people, just in case.
Speaking of animated series, just a reminder that Lower Deck Season 1 hits DVD and Blu-ray here in the US next Tuesday.
Ooh.
It's good. I like Lower Decks.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's so, it's one of those things. I actually genuinely think that if like even everyone even on this right now, I think if you were flung into the Star Trek universe, I think there's just I think you would actually respond the same way they respond to some stuff in that. You would totally think just some stuff's cool. You would totally end up playing with some gadget that you shouldn't be playing with. But it's so good though. It is quite funny. Every episode I was laughing at. Every episode it is just really daft. But I think in real life, I think if you were to grab some people from this generation and chuck them like a good couple of 100 years forward into say Lower Decks or some kind of scenario like that, they would probably do the exact same thing they end up doing.
I think that was also the appeal of like the Barkley character in the Next Generation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Erin, do you have a question? No. Okay. I've got another question. I've realized that you've spoken quite a bit about the advancements that Star Trek made and how they've influenced real world technology and stuff like that. What would you say has been the greatest advancement that Star Trek has ever envisioned?
Again, I would more just think even the standard thing like your mobile phone. And all the kind of earlier Star Trek, it's referred to as the communicator. It's the it's the comm. But I think when you look at the comparison of that to now, there's just even the concept of thinking about again 1960s. This device that doesn't have a cord on it that can let you communicate with people that are not in the same room as you. That has no cables, somehow it's got no cord that's going to the same room the person's talking to you with. It's just concepts like that have inspired technology. Again, because I'm an IT person anyway, like things like that, I do think about a lot of things with technology and developments. And even when you look at a hard drive in a PC now, or even if you've got even like a standard SD card that's like this size, it's teeny, you'll look at the size of a terabyte hard drive, or look at even a 100 gigabyte hard drive that took up the size of an entire room about only 20 or 30 years ago. So when you think about it in the Star Trek kind of point of view, it's kind of the same thing. It's like they've got these devices that can communicate, with a spaceship that's above them, and yet now we have these kind of devices. We've got a phone that is a mini computer. That's what they are. They are computers. On them, you've got access to the internet. You've also got access to video, audio. That they've kind of done in sci-fi years ago before the concepts were actually even about. The very earliest stages, I think maybe you had like some kind of cell phone that was connected to your car, around about that time, I think. But that's maybe all you would have had at the very least. So I would say for me it's more about I think the show that I'd watched years ago, it was William Shatner actually hosted it, and he was just talking about all the different influences in technology Star Trek's had. And I think that was probably the biggest one that I think he spoke about. I can't even remember what the other ones were, but for me, the most obvious thing is probably the smartphone, or just the mobile phone that can have video and audio. That in itself, changes everyone. It's that kind of thing where years ago, anyone in the 80s or 90s, we didn't have mobile phones. So if you arranged to meet someone at a certain time, you just had to be on time. You didn't have the option to text them to say, I'm going to be 10 minutes late. But now we've all got our mobile phones attached to it. It's like a third arm. For me, my mobile phone's always in my right hand pocket, and even instinctively, I always go to get it because I know it's always there because my phone's always on me. And it's the kind of ways that I feel Star Trek has influenced technology, and in itself with technology and Star Trek, it's influenced a bit of culture as well. Even the kind of the ideas of Star Trek, even say the kiss with Uhura and Kirk. That was a big, massive thing. The first ever, interracial kiss on live television. Things like that. They've kept pushing culture. When Whoopi Goldberg was talking about joining Star Trek, she was entirely influenced by that Uhura being on Star Trek, a black woman that was on TV, and she wasn't a maid. That's Whoopi Goldberg's words, and that inspired her to actually later years actually join Star Trek. And again, it's about, I think, sci-fi itself, and especially Star Trek. And I think even the kind of concepts that Gene Roddenberry had, he was constantly pushing the kind of, the barriers there, constantly pushing forward, so that maybe hopefully one day we'd actually have a world that would be like the Federation, where we all just celebrate each other's differences, and it's all one happy big family.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
But for me, mobile phone, definitely. We all need it. We all use it. It's so handy, and I think Star Trek were there first. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Adam, you thought? Adam, do you thought of the question, or something to say?
I typed it in. Do you know about this Nichelle Nichols documentary that's about to come out?
No, not heard of it.
Oh.
It's been out for quite a while in the UK already on Amazon.
Right.
Women in Motion, I think. I thought it was. Yep. I watched it. I thought it was really good.
Right. Ooh, I'll check that out tonight. Get something else to watch.
Check it out. The podcast that I do, we talked about it a little bit on. We did like a whole news segment one day. We usually just break down series, and this was one of the articles, and it's fantastic. It's really, really good.
Oh, I'll give that a watch.
I'll see if it's on my Netflix.
Yeah, I'll get something to watch. I've got some homework to do now tonight. That sounds quite good as well. So what's the kind of what does it kind of, is it just a one-off, or is it a couple of them? Is it just a one-off one that she's done? Well,
yeah, it's a one-off about her influence on NASA, basically.
Get something to watch now then. There we go. I'll get some homework tonight. Again, I think stuff like that, it's very important, I think, to promote stuff like this, and especially whether it's Star Trek, or again, whether it's the kind of the cultural impact that Star Trek has had on people, and just on culture itself. It has. It's when you look back at things that Star Trek has pushed barriers, and it's things like that again, even if it's on mainstream TV, the kind of storyline and plot lines, whether it involves a different race or a different gender, they did a lot of those episodes were kind of honed in on people accepting other people for their differences, and that's stuff that a generation of people have grown up with. And I think, if anything, you can almost see sometimes, maybe perhaps why even a lot of sci-fi fans sometimes are actually quite accustomed and used to being people that think outside the box, because I think they've maybe already been actually introduced to possible new concepts or ways of thinking that, it sounds so stupid, maybe it sounds daft to some people, but if you've grown up watching Star Trek and watching these things, you're watching like characters play these peaceful aliens who are always trying to find a diplomatic way to solve a solution. They're celebrating their differences. That person's helping that person, despite even though they're the color blue. There's no racism there. There's nothing like that. It's just all that, and that would maybe inspire someone to think that way as they're growing up. And then as that gets better, those are then people that become people that might even be people that actually advocate for things like equality and inclusivity and stuff like that. And that's I think in itself, Star Trek has probably had a more massive cultural kind of influence that I think a lot of people sometimes might realise.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So to wrap up then, I basically had like two questions that sort of rolled into one. To those who are interested in taking the course, how can they do so? Can they do so in this run of it? And are there like initial plans to are there plans to run the course after this initial run? And basically, like, if you could summarize what people could expect to get out of the course.
Yes. So no, if I have my way, this course will run forever. That's me saying that flat out. Plans to rerun it again. So the current block we're in now, they'll finish at the beginning of June. So once the standard student block over here normally runs from, it's usually the end of August up until it's usually the end of May, beginning of June. So once this block finishes, the next block of courses will start in August. And again, that'll be the same thing. It'll all be Star Trek courses. And as soon as, and we try and usually do it that once an 8-week block ends, the next block right after it begins. So I plan to keep repeating the Star Trek course as much as I can, even hopefully developing it even more over time. If we're getting more people joining it, or more people even suggesting ideas that could be really good to actually enhance the idea of the course. What they can get from it again is it's an 8-week course. Every week we try and cover a different Star Trek franchise. Again, for people that are new to Star Trek, as well as people that also are hardcore Trekkies all the way, but also want to just maybe discuss certain episodes, that want to discuss a scenario with other like-minded people. It'll be the eight-week course. Every bit of content I make up for the course that I do on my PowerPoints, again, in a lovely LCARS theme, keeping it trying all the same. I export those presentations as PDFs. Everyone gets those handouts, everyone gets the recordings, and then at the end of the course, you get a nice, shiny, official Glasgow Clyde College certificate saying that you have studied Star Trek at college. Ha. That's it.
Cool.
That's it, really. Again, it's part of a program called Love to Learn, and again, the concept around that again has been about that you don't just go to, maybe college isn't just there just purely for a course that straight out leads to a job. It might be a course just because you want to learn something, or it's a shared passion. And again, that's not, it sounds, another thing we'd actually discussed before is that's not to say that even doing this course couldn't lead to a job. If you're a person that's maybe going to go and get a job in, say, a place like Forbidden Planet or a comic book shop, if you've even got a little bit of clout behind you to say, well, actually, I studied Star Trek, I did a Star Trek course at college, that in itself might give you a bit of extra clout. But also, again, if that person interviewing you or person you're talking to goes, oh, I'm a Star Trek fan too, and again, that gets people talking, it gets people networking, and it gets conversations going, and people getting to know each other. And again, that's the thing that, again, I think is building communities, and I think that is a big thing that I'm strongly behind against with Star Trek, is that I think it's a big community there. And I think even if you're a person that's, whether it's one end of the country or one end of the world, I think, if you're a Star Trek fan, I think you could probably get talking in minutes about something you've got a shared passion about, whether it's your favourite captain, favourite show, this or that. Easy peasy.
Cool. So if people are interested in enrolling in the course, how would you suggest getting in contact? Like go on the Glasgow Clyde website? Would it be?
Yeah, just on the website. You could, again, because it's online, you can join it from anywhere. I mean, some of my Batman courses we had, although I'm here in Glasgow, Scotland, some of the students that were on my other classes, they were joining us from Canada, they were joining us from Jersey, they were joining us from England, they were joining us from all over the place. So because it's an online course, that's a good benefit to it. You can still join us. It's online. All you do is go to the Glasgow Clyde website. The website is just glasgowclyde.ac.uk, or just Google it. And it's under the Love to Learn section and the college courses, along with some other really, really fun ones as well. So if you want to join, just go on the website, you can book your place, and then that's you. I'll then be the one that's in touch with you, and I'll be emailing you directly, then I'll be telling you when the course starts, and then that'll be us. It'll all be good.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Lastly, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome being here. That actually has been the highlight of my day. Well, I've been up really early today the whole day. I've been like, oh, I'm gonna go on this. It's gonna be so much fun. So
Yes, thank you so much. Cheers.
thank you.
Oh, thank you.
You've all been awesome. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure meeting fellow Star Trek fans. It's something that I think we don't do as often. I think we should. I think we should be seeing more Star Trek fans and more Star Trek people. You should have more Star Trek people in your lives, because it's just something we can talk about forever.
And I was thinking of, I think you're the first Scottish guest that we've had on this channel so far.
All right. Ooh, yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. I feel privileged. I'll try and hold that title now, definitely. Excellent. Cool.
Thanks, George.
Okay.
To reviewers, please like and subscribe to this video. We'll see you again next Saturday. For just now, live long and prosper.
Hey.